Okay. You are recording this, okay? So I need to be correct.
Oh, no.
Okay, so just let's go. Okay, all right, perfect. So the first one is why AI governance? And this is a small slide that shows you how fast the technology is growing. If you see how much time did telephone take to reach the 400 million users? It took 75 years. I think that number is not showing here, but it took 75 years, believe me. But now if you see Chat GPT, they did it in less than a year. That is how fast the technology is changing. And whether we like it or not, AI is here. Technology is here. Folks are using AI, and I'm sure you all are, in your work life, in your personal life, you are using your AI. So we can't deny, even if we like it or not, AI is here. And how does AI show up today in your life? It shows up as an analyst, as a writer, as an intern. And this is from the lens of a product development. So what kind of products would you develop when you think about an AI? You would develop a product that's an analyst, like a market research summary creator, a writer, which we all have been using Grammarly, but for a while now, but it's similar to that. We use so many writers uh, to draft our writing material in minutes. It's multilingual translation, and as an intern. I know there is a lot of talk about having a autonomous AI out there, but we are not there yet. As today, it shows up in your office as an intern. If you have an intern, you will have to train it, and the intern is going to behave as good as you train them. So that's the kind of AI would show up in your life. It's today is they show up as an intern. And I'm going to have a quick poll here. If you can just go and take this. What was the poll about? Okay. Okay, so let me know when you are done with the, we can look at the results. Yeah. So the question was, where do you think that AI is outperforming humans today? And I see that 64% said problem solving and 34% of brave souls said creative work. So that's good. Now let's go back to our presentation and see what we have been seeing so far. This is a study that was done by Boston consultants with Harvard Business School. And what you see here is the dashed line. That is the way humans are performed. And anything below that is the work, that's a simple work. Anything above that is a difficult work for an average human. And the blue line you see is how AI is performing. Okay, so it's not that AI is always performing better than humans. It's not always they are performing less than humans. And if you guys are interested, you can go and look at this study. It's a very interesting study where they actually found that there are some regular problem-solving questions that one would say that AI should be able to answer really easily, but it does not. It did not. And there are some areas where where we saw that we thought that AI cannot perform. It's a creative work. It's meant for human brains. But actually, AI performed better than humans. So we are at a forefront of a technology where we are not able to predict exactly where the AI is going to outperform humans. Okay, so that's where we are. That's the window of time right now. So what was the conclusion of this study was that no matter how good your AI is, that you think how good your AI is, Right now, it is not autonomous. It needs human verification to see whether the results are good or not. Okay, I think that's what this study showed. So next slide. So the other things that we see here is what are the critical risks? And I think we all talk about that is the bias. You know, we live in a biased world and AI is trained on that data collected in the biased world. So obviously it has bias. It has training bias, representation bias, feedback loop bias, automation bias. These biases exist. And there are some high risk areas where if AI is used, these biases are really amplified, such as hiring algorithms or healthcare risk problems. These are some high-risk areas where if AI is used without a human validations, it can really pose problems. The next critical risk we see is that AI is always confident. If you ask questions, there are very few times the AI would tell you that I actually do not know. Most of the times, AI LLMs will hallucinate and they will give an answer which seemingly are correct, right? So it's difficult with for an easy, there's no easy way to figure out whether the answer given by an AI is correct or not. So these are some of the risk factors out there. Like we do not know how where AI is working and where AI is not working. We also do not know we know that it's biased. We know it's overconfident. All these factors, when they come together, that really elevates and the need to have a more AI governance. AI governance is really important. The technology looks very promising. When you try to use it, it gives great results. But when you're trying to build a product out of it, to use it in your day-to-day life, you must take into consideration few of the things that belong to the AI governance. So let's go through that. So they are going to talk about building principles. That's human-centered design. Human-centered design is not a new concept, right? Like those who have built products in the past, we always say you must have a human-centered design. And this is all the more important for AI. Next slide. So the core principles are human-centered solutions. Again, everything that we have learned for decades, what does a human-centered solution is? It starts with the human problem, design with the user's context. Do not build your product for technology just because the technology exists. See if it's actually building the product, solving the problem or not. And on the right-hand side here, the human in the loop workflow is important. It means that, like right now, very in simple terms, AI would generate, but you would need a human being to review the results. And then human would decide whether it's good or not, and that's what will be fed into the AI. So you will have these loops, and who knows? Once we feed the results back, AI would get better every day, and slowly some flows will become autonomous with these human connections. But you still have to continue to review that and make decisions on that. The second one is build versus automate. So we have been using computers for so many decades now, and we have always done automation. We did great. And now we have AI. There are a lot of problems that you can solve with the regular automation, like regular technology that we have had in the past. And then you have AI. AI can also solve it. So how do you know whether to use the regular automation or whether to use AI? I think right now what happens is in the market, if you go and talk to most of the managers, it's AI is the buzzword. So everyone is pushed to have an AI product. But is that really needed? So I'm going to help, talk to you about that. So let's take this AI poll too. It's a very simple poll. And I think with what I have said so far, I'm expecting an answer to go in certain way. Can we go to the results? Okay. Sorry? Oh, well, that's fine. If it's probably the wrong link there. I can ask the question and you can show of hand. How many of you think that the AI should be, like AI should always be used? Show your hand. All right. Great. I don't see any hand raised here. I don't know if anyone raised their hands in the Zoom. No? So you all, if none, then you pass the test. Let's go to the Slido then. Should AI be explored? Oh, who answered that? Okay. Anyhow, let's go and see whether we should or should not. This is one of the framework for you to decide when you get a problem to solve whether you should use AI or not. Look at the task type. Is it repetitive? Is it rule-based? Go for automation. Is it complex and ambiguous? Go for an AI. If you have an input data, is it a structured data? Go for an automation. Is it a unstructured? Go for AI solution. Similarly, there are many things out here. For example, it's best for invoice processing where you already know the rules. No need to have an AI there. You have your input file, just use a standard rule-based automation. But if it's a fraud detection where the world is changing and you have to interpret the results, best to use AI/ML. And again, AI/ML with human in loop. And cost and risk is another important one. And the next slide. I have here a sheet, a simple sheet that's built by a product leader from OpenAI. It's really a great sheet. I find it very useful. List of questions, grade them, and it tells you, it's all of us are data scientists, so we like numbers. So, it's under 10, do not use AI. 30 to 40, strong AI use case. So this is a one thing that I really like to go through, really understand whether you should build an AI solution or not. And next slide is responsible AI. So once you decide that, yes, AI is the solution to be built, then building a responsible AI is also as important for us. So why? There are few aspects over here. So let's go through them quickly. The first one is the fairness. I'm sure you all have seen this somewhere or the other. The first one is fairness. Is what does fairness mean? Define it. Audit before deployment. You must have your, we used to have evals. Um, Evaluating a AI product with a non-deterministic output has its own drawbacks. Like, you don't have the standard set of input and output where you can just run an eval and display the results, right? So some methodologies are there, and if you guys are interested, I can share that with you. But there are few things that you need to consider before you make a deployment of your product in AI. So audit before deployment. Diverse development teams are important because they then help you navigate the bias in your AI. Having different voices in the team will reduce the impact of the biased data. And then ongoing monitoring. Um, and this is safety and robustness. These are the standards for all products that we build, obviously for AI too. And the next one is transparency and explainability. Many a times AI comes as a black box, and that introduces a lot of problems. So there are going to be some states are actually mandating right now that if you are building an AI, make sure that you're transparent, telling the user that you're using an AI, how it is being used, how are you making sure that the bias is reduced, and all that. There's a list of questions that you must answer. So states are already catching up with this particular problem with AI. And the next one is, this is my favorite one, the environment issue or environment impact of AI. So training GPT, it emitted so much of carbon dioxide, right? And we are building AIs left and right, not thinking through whether AI is needed or not. We are just building AI for AI most of the places. And what impact does it have on the environment? And as I told you, I work for a nonprofit. Most of our customers are nonprofit. They are super sensitive about environment. And we are asked these questions more times than I would like to know. But this is the biggest problem. This and the other one is obviously the IP, intellectual property. Those are the two biggest problems that you'll see on the field when you build an AI product that you need to. So how do we go about addressing these risks? That's where the leader's role comes in. And leader, it doesn't mean that they need to be having a title in the organization. Each one of you, when you're building an AI, you are the leader of your product. So some of the things that you have to think about is set the ethical tone. When you're building a product, you know your ethics, you know your rules. Apply them to the product that you're building. If you're building, for example, if you're building a product that's going to eliminate hundreds of jobs, is that what you want to do right now? Does that match with your ethical rules? What is the impact going to be of this AI? Is this going to kill a rainforest somewhere? Like, have your AI matched with this ethical tone. Make values explicit for your team. Resolve the value conflicts. Protect any dissent, and accountability stops with you. So remember that don't build an AI product just remember whether to build it or not based on these governance criterias. And this is leading human AI team. So we saw that the AI is not fully ready to be autonomous. So you're going to have human AI interactions. As a leader, you would see a lot of new workflows coming up with human AI interactions. And this is a very special kind of interactions that you'll have to think through. And how will you be creating those workflows when you're building a product? So how do you redefine a role? And it's not about reducing the headcounts, but it's about making the humans more efficient. AI is absolutely making everybody efficient. And how do you bring that efficiency in your workflows when you build the human AI teams, manage the handoff carefully, and some of the standard things that you have to know and do when you're building a new workflows. And that's it for me for now. So just quickly going through these. What we saw was AI is the fastest adopted technology in history. It's powerful, but at the same time, it's biased, it's overconfident, it's opaque. So know its limits. Build AI around human needs with humans in loop. Use AI where it creates value. Use automation where rules suffice. And fairness, safety, transparency, sustainability are non-negotiables. Keep them in mind. And as leaders, set your values and make sure that the products you're building with AI are in tandem with your values. So thank you, guys. Thank you for your time.
Does anyone have any questions for Sonali?
I do have in the chat. I don't know if you want me to speak it out. I think Lakshman had one too.
Okay, sure. Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, the responses you get from these AIs are as good as your prompts, right?
Yes.
From your expertise, like how do you manage this for people coming from different verticals?
So that's a great question. So we at our office, we use Claude for Cowork. So the way we are solving right now is we are creating skills skills that our experts would create. Like if, for example, if it's related to financial, then someone in CFO's department will create a skill for financial. Or if it's a communication and how do you have presentations, then someone will create a skill for presentation based on the different what your the way your font should be and what your color should be. So someone in communication would create, and the skills is nothing but the prompts, and you create that as a skill, and then you can share it with your friends, coworkers, or whoever in your organization. That's how it. We use a lot of RAG because we have, like as in Candid, the company that I work for, we have about 70 plus years of knowledge. We have lots of blogs, we have lots of videos that we have created over the time. And so anytime people are asking us questions, sometimes the questions can be asked through the model, like recommendations and all, but sometimes the questions that we get are, they are based on the material that we have. So we use that RAG as the base. So we have actually a chat bot out there for nonprofits to use. If they have any questions about the nonprofit world, they could go and ask the question to that chat bot, and that chat bot in the back end is using all of our material as a RAG.
I have another question here.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Recently, cloud, you mentioned cloud, right? They came up with a constitution with four major principles. Safety, ethics, there are two more actually. Helpful, and one more, answerable, something like that. So to what extent the industry is adopting those principles?
I think that's a great question, and I think there are two things that are happening in the industry right now. There's a mad rush to get the products out there, and in the past in the business world we said like big ate small, right? Now the word out there is that fast eats slow. So everybody just wants to be fast and they want to go ahead. So unfortunately, there is not much adoption of these technology-related, ethics and regulations. But the states and the regulations are catching up, and you will see the California has one regulation that's coming out. I think Ohio State is coming out with another regulation. So you'll see slowly the states would come out with these regulations where the organizations will be forced to do that. And Claude is different than OpenAI. Claude is itself a nonprofit, so it has its own mission. So you'll see that Claude, more likely than less, would be adopting these ethics-related values.
How do you think these? Sorry. How do you think these regulations would even hold up in a court of law? Because the Constitution, your First Amendment guarantees free speech, and any AI model, it's basically, speech. You can think of the model as a writer or author expressing the model's point of view on any query, which is basically just, basically, an entity that is expressing its speech. So under the First Amendment, it seems most of these regulations should be, shot down based on that. I don't really know how they would have standing, but maybe there's another avenue, or I'm quite curious about your opinions on that.
I'm not really expert on the the law of AI, and but I know for a fact that White House is really into making sure that the law catches up with the technology. So I'm hopeful we get some better guidance around it. I hope I answered. I'm sorry, I don't have much better answer than that.
So we have a question online, Sonali. What are the two major requirements for agentic AI to work?
Two major requirements for agentic AI to work. I am not exactly sure what that means. I mean, we have an agentic AI which had many requirements. I'm sorry, Lakshman, I'm not exactly sure. When you say two requirements, do you have and like? Oh, you
What
mean to say
I'm
the tools and for the MCP? Is that what you mean? For MCP, what it is?
yeah, like I want to know like when you try to build an agent, what are the two primary elements you think that should be put in first so that you can go further?
I think the very first thing you have to look at is like what problem you're solving. Is it truly an agentic problem? Is that how you want to look at it, or are you talking about using MCP for an agent? In that case, the way we have done it is we have APIs that are built, so we didn't build um, agentic workflow as such. What we did was you build your models, you build APIs on top of that, and then you build an LLM that can talk to these APIs and gives an agentic experience. So you need to
Okay,
have tools defined, and you need to have an access to the tools that's given to the interpreter, could be an LLM, that can understand the human interactions and can answer that. I am trying my best to answer.
okay, thanks. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, okay.
We have
Thank
another
you.
question here.
Is AI on our cell phone? Yes.
Without us knowing about it. Can we repeat the question? Here's the.
Oh. Is AI on our cell phone without us knowing about it?
Right. So let me just take a little step back and talk about AI itself. So there's been AI for decades in our lives. Okay. What we see new thing, that is the LLMs, that's large language models that are the AI version, like it can understand the language. That's the new type of AI that's coming in. But um, artificial intelligence, even the computing and all those things have always been there. You use Alexa, you have been using Siri for a while. That is an AI. If you have any specific example that you want to talk about.
I know so little about it that, oh, nobody can hear me? Nobody can hear me? This is such a new technology, that I don't know if it's on my phone and I don't know it. And if it's not on my phone, do I need it?
Uh,
I have my cell phone with me, so if somebody wants to. Wait a minute here. Trying to do two things at once here.
I think maybe the concern is AI collecting my data from my phone without me knowing.
Yeah.
Is that the
Well, yeah.
Or does she need it for any other purposes, right? If it's not there. So
Yes,
answer your question simply, does your phone have AI? Does your phone open recognizing your face, or do you put in a code in there?
Yeah, I don't know. Right now, I
Huh.
turned it off for the meeting, so I'm waiting for it to come back on.
Okay, but otherwise, when your phone screen locks, how does it open?
All right, do I go into my apps?
No, does.
Your face.
Oh, I'll help you after the
I put
Oh.
app-
I'll help you after the meeting. We can talk after the meeting.
Oh.
Thank you.
All right.
I can ask now, but I think we moved on or different things, but my question was, I want to add to your question was, somebody asked the regulation, how that constitution is adopted across, but I think it depends on the industry, because if you are a federated industry, regulated industry, constitution doesn't matter because you have to talk with Fed, so you have a much more guardrails. But if you are doing some type of Google search, doesn't matter because there are less guardrails. So it depends on industry. Anthropic can come up with any constitution, but you have to talk with the Fed. So regulation, because I work in a regulated industry, so we have to go to tons of guardrails. And I make a joke all the time that I talk with the lawyers more than in my life in the last 6 months when AI came out.
That was a follow-up. So just to repeat, his question, he was mentioning about, rebuttal of my question earlier with the, constitutional protections of AI or whatnot. And he mentioned that, just to repeat his, in federal industries, like a DOD or FDA or something, different, insurance, certain regulated industries. Well, the Constitution, that's written, 200 years ago. And the way it was written is that it applies across the board. All people have unalienable rights. The Bill of Rights, it applies to everyone. There's no exceptions. That was what the framers wrote back in the day because they did not want the government to erode those rights over time. So in theory, the Bill of Rights, your First Amendment rights there couldn't be any carve outs for certain industries. Just like, you could imagine if, they slowly over time made a carve out for this regulated industry or that, then after a few hundred years, people's freedom of speech would be severely limited. So I think if you were an AI company and you were facing these regulations, if I was a lawyer for them, I would argue that, these agents, they're creating, opinions, which would be protected speech, just as if a person was writing those articles. There's no difference between an LLM voicing those opinions or a person. And I think the thing is that's up to the courts to decide. Based on, the original interpretation of the Constitution, any of those AI safety laws, I think would be thrown out, but you never know. They always have different Supreme Court justices and they might have different points of view. So depending on, what the judiciary thinks at one point in time, that may differ than what the original interpretation of the Constitution meant. So I think to answer your question, those industries would not have an exception. I would disagree. Oh, okay.
It's not the US.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, that's how, clarify. Yeah, I'm not talking about the.
Yeah. Yes, we'll discuss. Yeah, well, so we'll be discussing that. You can discuss that after the meeting during the networking portion, but we're gonna actually do the last question in the chat first, and then we'll have time for one more live question. So what is the additional work or effort that needs to be budgeted to add on to, and is it a trivial amount with pressure for time to market?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, when we started building our AI products 2 years ago, it took us like 3 months to build a model and build a front end to it. But now with Claude Code, we are doing it in 2 weeks or less. And I'm sure that, in few days, we are going to be finishing up a new product within a day. So because of even the coding is becoming agentic, it's so fast. It really is not taking much time to build the product. Of course, the budget is still in agentic AI. When you're building a product, most of the budget goes in the amount of tokens you will use to eval your product, right? And that's a lot of budget, and it depends on what kind of product you have, what kind of how many times you're going to hit, and how many tokens you're going to use from Anthropic or from OpenAI. That's an open question, so I can answer to that. But those are the couple of things that you'll have to look at.
Okay, and then the last question.
Hi, I have a question regarding how relationships in the future are going to be like in the AI world. Like, I've noticed a lot of times where if I read an article, I know the moment I read it, I can tell that it was written by AI or whether someone has a document. it was written by AI. And I feel like as a human, I don't feel as compelled to want to put in the time and energy to want to read a document if someone wrote it with AI. And I still prefer like that human touch where, okay, I missed a comma here. Okay, I forgot to indent here. But having that human error and the personality still feels superior compared to AI. And just curious in terms of how personalization will be like in the future, how do you see that trend going?
I mean, that's a great question. And, we are in the business of getting the funders, like the funding for the nonprofits. So we help write grants proposals, and that's so personal for the nonprofits to tell their story. And what we have learned, it's not about, the AI is not about just writing the English, right? It's about helping them get their thoughts through correctly. So we found more value in uh, surfacing the areas where they should be thinking through the problem and how they should be approaching, what are the different materials they should be looking at. That's where the AI actually adds an efficiency than writing it up. And but not to let's not underestimate the value of writing. I think the the value of writing is it is making the sector more accessible and more equitable, because in the past the communities who didn't have English as their first language couldn't write a good grant proposal. So this is it absolutely is helping them. But at large, it is really the AI is more of a thought companion, is how we are seeing it, than creating finished product.
Okay, I think that's it for that portion. We do have another fun word cloud. So if you can take out your phones and scan the QR code, and I will put it in the chat. And then we're just going to have a 10-minute break, and then we'll give you the results afterward. But we'll be having our next speaker, Sanjana Ramana, speaking on AI governance as well, and data pipeline.
Yes, and stick around. Her presentation is much better than mine. I just shared the theoretical information. She is going to share with you practically how the AI governance works. So stick around. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was in the chat. Like, thank you. Really good presentation. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, so I have a question. Probably didn't get into here, but it's. Oh, everyone, there's cookies. Please feel free to grab some cookies.
I don't know, maybe I'm just, I just need a little help here. It's not that I don't know about AI. I just don't know what happened with me, with my phone. Or something, my phone for everything. So if I was to go in and I have a code, here are my apps. Do I have AI?
Oh, I can actually tell you. I can tell you right now. You'll actually keep track. Yep. Oh. Oh.
Take your time because I don't know.
Oh. Oh, the Coke one? Yeah. Oh,
I need my glasses if you're gonna show me some. Hold on one second. Hold on.
Did you let Sanjana in?
I didn't know if you were gonna show me something.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You need my name? Yeah, two things. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, for you.
Yeah.
So go watch pretty good.
You know, there are some cookies there, right? You can announce that. There are some cookies, maybe. They're not enough, but there are some.
Hi, everyone. This is just another announcement. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right. Please feel free to grab some cookies. We bought this for you. So please feel free to grab some. Thank you.
Thank you. Here's what you're gonna do. You want me to hold this while you do that? It is. Like, here, I have several things. So how do you know I have? Well, it goes down very quickly, so. The funny thing is, like, it's not. And it's such a joy to get passed on. So someone. Right. And you're like, I needed to be in position. You go to Google, okay, that's. So just a minute. Yes. There's this one.
And I know that is it. But as of right now, I don't. You don't have the base level.
So thank you for any reason. And
I personally think like AI is like admin, like
no, like if you yeah. Yes. Your website. Thank you. I didn't even know I had this. Ding dong.
I'm just graduated.
Oh, you have to be
Currently,
I did not know that I even had.
and I noticed that once you call it, it's like just the AI takes. I don't know. I wanted to ask. So do you think is there any data that kind of gives you some insight into like why
And can anything.
job? And then two is like, do you have
I know exactly. That's the best. Don't find objects. That's.
yeah, and there's just nothing in
And I'm feeling other people that
I did not.
So Adam, so.
It was my friend's dad. The tech stack they used was like
Okay, I don't.
I made it shorter. It's like
No,
My company's can make this.
okay. Got married. I just got my Mary.
All right. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, all right, I wanted to.
And you didn't get.
No, they don't help you find a job. They have basically says what kind of things do you.
I get what I'm saying, and then I feel like I'm in the minority.
I think I should instead of
I appreciate.
I did it.
Absolutely.
Instead of
You have to help someone else? Okay. All right.
Like, you got any Google things? I didn't see the topic against it.
Oh, I
You guys give me
I have a
email
dog
address?
now. It's just
Like, send
I
me
don't
some
make it
directions
look
she just ordered. Oh, she got it.
I'm very.
Oh, there she is.
Okay, we're getting retail. It's just like it's past 2 years have aged me considerably.
They just call me to check. Oh, okay.
I don't use it.
Like, the heart attack and sigh of relief.
Yeah, no. I did my I don't want to hold up. No, but I would love to talk more.
Of course, can you connect with me on LinkedIn? Okay, and I will, right now the market is such that
With.
Right? Is it 10 minutes, sir?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Here is the ringer.
Oh, on our slide, we don't have the ringer, but, oh, so we ended a little late, right? Hi, everyone. We're going to be starting again in 2 minutes. So grab your cookies, grab a seat, and get comfortable. Oh, let me see which Wi-Fi you're connecting to.
Hey Denise, am I audible?
Hi, Sanjana. Can you hear us?
Yes. I can hear you. I just wanted to make sure I'm audible before the session starts.
Oh. So, did you want to share your screen?
Oh yeah, I will.
Hold on, 1 second.
Hey, Sanjana, you
Yes,
hear us?
yeah, I can hear you. I just want to make sure that you can hear me too. Is this Aparna?
I think.
I'm sorry, can you speak up a little louder? It's we got a room full of people and we're having trouble hearing you.
Okay, what about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
It's coming in a little faint. We're not able to hear you like full volume. Is that something you can maximize on your side?
It's pretty much full volume on the Zoom side, so I think she's fine.
I think it's because people are talking. So
Possibly the sound at the back.
Sit down.
Sam, are you plugging her to this mic system, or are you using a mic on?
Oh, hi everyone. We're gonna get started. Can everyone grab their seats?
Hi.
And we have a remote speaker and we're having a little bit of trouble hearing her. So we're gonna need everyone to lower their volume just a bit. Thank you. All right, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Hopefully you can hear me now too.
Yes, we can.
All right, awesome. And is my screen visible? Is my screen visible, Denise?
Oh, yes, it is. I'm sorry. I couldn't quite hear you. But yes, your screen's visible.
All right. Yeah, let me know if I have to speak up a little more than this, but I think this is the max I can go to. But yeah, feel free to interrupt me in case you can't hear me at any point. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Uh, So shall we get started?
Yeah, let's get started.
All
Yes,
right.
Sandra, we did the code, Coke poll is already up, so we can start with the results if that helps you. So we're just bringing that up.
Sure. I'll get to that in like the third slide. So I'm gonna ask
Sure.
people. So yeah,
Okay.
cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Aparna. Yeah. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm joining in from London. I'm very thankful to Denise and the team for inviting me, for accommodating me, even though I'm so far away. I used to live in Jersey until like a month ago, so I'm very excited to be presenting today for the Jersey meetup. Yeah, I hope that all of you had fun in the sessions earlier, and yeah, I'm excited to get started. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about AI governance in practice. But before that, let me just introduce myself. I'm Sanchna. I worked as a data and AI engineer for 4 years in New York. I recently moved from New York to London, and I'm building my AI startup here. So it's very challenging and difficult. I'm also a Columbia University alum. I graduated from Columbia University, and I run a dedicated data engineering workshop. So a couple of concepts that I'm going to be talking about today are mostly related to data engineering. So if you're trying to break into data engineering, then scan this QR code and yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, and that is where I share most of the information. So you should be so I can help you out in case you want to learn more. All right, just doing a quick mic check. Denise, all okay? All good, right? All good?
We're all
I'm
good.
just gonna.
Thank you.
Cool. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So before we jump into the topic, I think Aparna just mentioned that the poll went up. So I'm sure all of you had a chance to answer this weird question of how many different ways you can write a can of Coke in. So I'm very excited to see what kind of answers you have. I don't know if you have access to the chat, but I'd be excited to learn like what the average number was. Like a quick show of hands, maybe 10. How many of you think 10 is the maximum number of oh, okay. So I think there's a screenshot, but yeah. So I'm just thinking, was it on ballpark 50 or 100 or 10? Like, what was the close by number?
I put it in the chat, Sanjana.
Okay. So I think I'm seeing 7, 3, 4, and 10. Oh, 3,000? Okay, somebody said 1,000 and 3,000. So I don't know. I don't know if you can write a can of Coke in 3,000 different ways, but definitely you can definitely write it in 60 different ways. So the answer is 60. So I'm sure you can come up with more ways, but the answer is 60. And this was recent. This was a fact that I found out in a recent CFO summit. So I went to the summit with a bunch of CFOs talking about their products and all of that, right? And this fact sort of came up saying a global food company had 60 different ways of writing a single product, which is a can of Coke in this case, in their systems. So imagine 60 different ways of writing a can of Coke. So here are some ways: Coke 330 ml, Coca-Cola, Coke can, whatever, right? So they had 60 different entries. Now you might be wondering, how is this even relevant to governance, the topic that I'm talking about, right? But it just turns out that by entering the same product in 60 different ways, the food company was not able to understand how many sales it was making for this particular product, because each of these different logs were considered to be different products, and they kind of assumed that, for Coke 330 ml there were X number of sales, for Coke can there were Y number of sales, and so on, right? So since they had so many different ways, they couldn't really figure out what the total sale value was, because of which they couldn't understand how the finance team couldn't understand, like, how much resources to allocate to this. The inventory team did not know how many Coke cans were left in the inventory. some of the dashboards for data analysis and data analytics, those also weren't reflecting accurately on the number of sales that were actually made. And because of this, the entire fiasco was they couldn't really understand how many different ways, how many products were sold, how many Coke cans were sold, and obviously that impacts all of the systems that I just spoke about, right? So why am I telling you this? Obviously, by writing, if you do not have governance in place, it affects the entire company. It affects the inventory team, it affects the sales team, it affects the finance team, it affects the data science and analytics team, and most importantly, it affects the AI models, because the AI models are looking at this data in order to understand what sort of predictions have to be made for the future, understanding some trends, understanding some data. And if you're not giving accurate information to the model, it doesn't really understand what kind of predictions to give. And obviously, since the data is messy, the model output will also be messy. So one key thing that that everybody has to remember in this AI era is that an AI model is only as good as the data you feed it, right? So, and how do you make sure that the data that you're feeding it is correct? By making sure that you have all the governance principles set in place, so that the model doesn't have to sit and guess, what kind of output it is giving. It knows for a fact that the data that it is looking at is accurate, and it is able to make predictions accurately. So it all starts with the data, right? Okay. So now that we've understood that data is the key component for any sort of AI governance, let's understand the different pillars there are for AI governance, right? So obviously we just spoke of data. So there are 8 different pillars for data governance. The first and foremost one is data cataloging. So what is data cataloging? Now, we just spoke of the Coke can example, right? So if there was enough information on what kind of products there are available in the inventory, then obviously it'll be easier for us to understand that, a can of Coke was written in 60 different ways, and it all combines to that same category. So how is this possible? This is possible by basically maintaining a metadata repository for the product that there is. So that is the first pillar, data cataloging. Data cataloging is basically a metadata repository that makes your data discoverable, understandable, and accessible across the organization. So once you have this data catalog, you know all the different kinds of data types that you have available in your systems, and that is where you can start your governance from, basically. So now that you have data cataloging, then comes data classification. Data classification, as the name suggests, is basically making sure that the data that you have available is classified into different categories that you need so that the AI model is able to understand it, right? So it's pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go deeper into that. But then comes data security and auditing, right? So what is data security? Data security is making sure that there are access controls set in place for who can view that particular data and who cannot view that particular data. So by making sure that certain data is only available to certain systems, we can make sure that there is the security concept has been enforced in the company. And this kind of becomes very important today, right? Because we're feeding all sorts of information to our AI models. And if security is not set in place, if access controls are not set in place, then the AI models might just get access to some sensitive data in your company. And, obviously, that is not something that is ideal, because it can use that information, it can leak that information for so many different purposes, and that is not what we want. So security is definitely one other key pillar that we have to consider. Now we have security in place. Now, how do we know that whatever data that is being accessed, how many times is this particular data being accessed? So that is where the auditing entitlements and access comes into the picture, right? So we want to understand that when a particular access control is set in place, who is able to access that data? How many times are they looking at that data? Is there any sensitive information present in that data, and should we mask any sensitive information in that data? So all of this can only be set in place if there is, auditing entitlements and access controls that is set in place. So that is our fourth pillar. So if the four things that I spoke about are already in place, then the data becomes discoverable. So data becomes discoverable by not just us, but like we spoke about earlier, the sales team is able to make connections to the data. The finance team is able to make connections to the data. Data scientists, data analysts are able to make connections to this data. So data becomes discoverable throughout the organization, right? And obviously after that, the sharing and collaboration aspect comes into place. So once the person knows that they have access to this particular data type, they can probably share this particular data with another team and say that, hey, this is some data that we are referring to. So can we collaborate on this? And can we make sure we are understanding it by deriving some insights on it? So this is another pillar that comes into place when we are talking about data governance. So one thing that I want to emphasize on is when all of this is set in place, there is a layer of lineage that becomes available to the company. So when we know where the data is coming from, where it is going, and who it is become accessible to, we know this entire flow of information, correct? And this entire flow of information is nothing but data lineage. So having end-to-end visibility of how data flows from source to consumption allows us to understand where there is particular breakage, if there is any breakage at any point, where some data loss is happening, where some key insights are stored in the system. So having this layer of visibility, especially when we are operating at billions of records, it becomes very easy for the data team to understand the entire flow of information, correct? So these are all the governance pillars that one has to consider when they are thinking about setting up data that is accessible to AI systems for accurate analysis or accurate model validation, right? So this is basically the core concept, and now we'll understand how what are the different places, or from a more practical lens on where things can break if data governance, if these pillars that we spoke about earlier are not set in place, right? So all right. So this is a very simple example. We'll go into more detailed examples later, but this example is of Priya. Right. So let's say Priya is sitting on her coffee desk Saturday evening. She's applying for a loan application with a bank that she's already registered with. Right. So she's filling in her loan application and she puts in an application. And 2 days later, there's an automated message that comes into her mailbox saying her loan application was rejected. Now, Priya is somebody who has a good income status. She has a good credit score. She has everything that an ideal applicant requires. But it just turns out that 2 days later, the AI model, obviously in 2 days, there's no it's not a real person that's making a decision. There's obviously a model running in the backend. It's just spitting out this rejection email in her mailbox, and she's just confused, right? So she doesn't know what went wrong. So now think about this. If you are in Priya's place, and if you are having to go back to the team, and if you're going to call them and try and understand why why the application was rejected, it's going to take a lot of time. And I think from the company's perspective as well, the company doesn't want to always sit and provide this system support when they already have invested so much in their data infrastructure, so that this entire process is streamlined. So what went wrong in this entire process? Let's try and understand that now, right? So when Priya was filling in her bank application, it just turns out that one of the fields, the key fields in that application, were not mandatory. And that mandatory field was her income level. So it just turns out she overlooked, filling in her income level in that application. And that income application went into the system. The system evaluated it as zero income. It looked at all the previous data that Priya had, but it still had zero income, so it flagged it and said, oh, okay, So this is a flagged income. So obviously Priya's income is 0, even though she has good credit score, even though we have all these bank details, this income is 0. So a simple rule-based architecture, right? It said, okay, if this is 0, then send out a rejection application. So this is what happened. But if this has to be fixed in the pipeline, there are certain governance principles that could have avoided this entire fiasco from happening, right? The first thing is, if there was a data contract that is set in place in the ingestion level, where the ingestion happens, then that could have been flagged, and an application, an email could be sent to the applicant saying, hey, this particular field was mandatory, but you didn't fill it out. Or if you fill it out, then we can proceed with the application. But that first layer was skipped. Then now since Priya is back into, now Priya went back to the customer support team and she's like, hey, can you tell me why it went wrong? If there is no lineage set in place, if they don't know why, what the source ingestion system was, where exactly this entire system was flagged, they will not be able to tell why her entire application was rejected, right? So unless a person sits and manually skims through her application, there's no way to tell why the system flagged it as a bad application, right? So for this reason, having data lineage, or basically having this entire flow of information accurately given to the model and having visibility to the system would have definitely helped. Now, if the regulator, so obviously, if the system is already set in place, then the person it will be very easy for the AI system to understand why the application was flagged, and why the applicant was rejected. So some of the principles that we talked about here were data quality, data lineage, and just having that level of governance that is available to the system, so that decisions can be made in a simpler manner. So yeah, so this is the difference between an ungoverned and a governed architecture. Without governance, there won't be any lineage tracking, there won't be any ownership, there won't be any data quality checks, and there won't be any access control set in place, right? But with data governance, there'll be lineage tracking, there'll be quality, there'll be access controls, there'll be audit logs. So since we have all of this information, it'll be very easy for the AI, for us to understand why a model spits out a certain result without actually having to think that our model is performing badly, correct? So, okay. So let's talk about another example where governance architecture can be properly enforced, right? So if you think about data engineering, there are two kinds of pipelines. There are batch pipelines, and then there are streaming pipelines. And for those who don't know, batch pipelines are basically running on a daily basis or a monthly basis or a yearly or a quarterly basis. So the frequency can be controlled when it comes to batch pipelines. But when it comes to streaming pipelines, we're thinking more of real-time data, real-time transactions, real-time history. So we want that instant capture so that instant results can be delivered. Now, both have their own perks. And when we're thinking about like data pipeline from a governance perspective, there are several ways in which governance principles can be enforced at different layers of the data pipeline. So this is an example of a financial firm, right? So in a finance firm, there are there's a customer CRM board. Then there is KYC and identity. Then we also want, the model also would require some other external signals like watch list, bureau, etc. And then there are also some transactions that are happening for each customer on a daily basis, based on which the model is able to detect whether fraud is happening or whether it's a fraudulent application or not a fraudulent application, right? So this is just a big picture view of what a data pipeline would generally, how governance can be enforced in different layers of data pipelines, right? So the first thing is these are all the data sources. Now now there is an ingestion layer. In the ingestion layer, if it is a batch pipeline, there is a different process. If it is a streaming pipeline, it's a different process. An example of streaming pipelines are delta live tables. And some ways in which governance can be enforced over here, which is, data quality can be enforced over here, is by making sure that there are null checks, there is schema enforcement, and bad rows are quarantined, and referential integrity is preserved. So these are some ways in which data quality can be enforced at the ingestion level. Now, after the ingestion is done, we were talking about lineage earlier, right? So in lineage, there is in data pipelines, there is this concept of unity catalog, which basically means you can understand how the data is flowing in different layers. So there are some tables called as bronze tables, silver tables, and gold tables. So in each of these layers, you can make sure that all the checks that we spoke of earlier are reflected, and the flow of data can be visualized using these different tables that there are present. And obviously, after that, we want to make sure that this information is being given to the model. So when we are giving it to the model, we want to make sure that there is bias testing that is happening. So there is fairness in model flow, and then there's also explainability in different layers in which the data flows from. And then last but not the least, it's very important for the human to be still available in the loop. And we're going to talk about this in just a bit. So basically, the human in the loop will be basically the reviewer. He'll be the human will understand that whatever classifications are being automatically done are being done in a systemized and regularized manner. And if there are any inconsistencies due to external factors, that is sort of incorporated in this entire flow. So the reason that I put up this slide is just to show what are the different governance principles there are, and what are some nitty-gritties of governance principles that can be enforced in all of these different layers that are available. So just a big picture view. Right. So now that we've understood that, I was talking about human in the loop earlier, right? So let's understand, what happens when governance is not set in place. So this is a real example from banking. This happened in 2022. So Bank of America kind of froze thousands of innocent accounts processing state unemployment benefits. The model it just so happened that the model just flagged legitimate claimants as fraudsters during the pandemic. And why did this happen? Because there was no bias detection, or there was no human in the loop set in place. There was no human actually monitoring what kind of results the model was spitting out, due to which thousands of claimants' unemployment benefits were just flagged and just like frozen during the pandemic time. And obviously, if you don't, I'm sure these people suffered, right? I'm sure they had like a good credit history and all of that, but due to the pandemic, since they lost their employment, they weren't granted these unemployment benefits because of an AI model not being able to do its job, right? It took a long time for these people to understand that there was no bias monitoring set in place, and the pandemic factor was not actually being used by the model when it is making this judgment. And because of this, $225 million in penalties were applied, just because of this one mistake of the governance not being set in place for in the systems. So this is just a case that it just shows that companies should focus more on governance, especially in this AI era. This is another example of a retail company. A retail company sort of missed 40% of its customer interactions. So it just so happened that the retail company had data in different systems. And since it was siloed, since the data was so siloed, and they didn't exactly have a certain unified way to visualize all of these interactions, they just happened to miss key customer interactions that were happening on product recommendations for a particular for some of the products. And since they missed these interactions, obviously it would have resulted in sales losses, inventory losses, and because of this, I'm sure they had some revenue impact. And this could have easily been avoided if they, had governance, if they did the data cataloging, if they had lineage tracking, and if they had that single source of truth for customer interactions. So this is just another example of another sector where certain governance principles were not followed, and companies, had a revenue impact because of that. Right. And this, I think most people know, this is Amazon's HR team. For a very long time, Amazon was basically scoring women lower because they just didn't have information. The model just did not have enough information on female hires in the company. So whenever they were trying to score a particular recruit, they were using these AI recruitment tools just to see who was a better fit for their candidacy, and they just happened to be downgrading women throughout this entire cycle. And the model was just flagging all of the applications of women, because of which obviously there is bias. But the good news is that Amazon had certain governance principles set in place. So they were able to track that the model was spitting out incorrect information, and they were able to correct it internally, and they were able to shut down that AI model that was giving these inaccurate classification or results. So yeah, all of these examples just show that if you're starting a company, or if you're thinking of like just moving into data, then it's very important to first set these governance principles in place. And if you already have a certain level of system, it's very important to go back and see what kind of systems there are, what kind of governance principles can be enforced at like source side, ingestion side, in the middle layers and in the latter layers as well. So yeah, now that we've understood the importance of governance for good AI models, I just want to close with one statement saying AI is just a layer on top of your data, right? If you don't have quality data, if your data is not clean, if your data does not have all the governance principles enforced, then there is nothing you can do. The model is still going to give you messy results. It's still going to give you inaccurate information, and you won't be able to control it. So it's very, very important to have data governance in place when you're thinking about the future, which is AI. Right. And one more thing that I want to emphasize here is AI left alone to just like, basically AI left alone to have access to everything is not the solution going forward. It's very important to have the human in the loop factor, because only when you are governing the AI system will there be some degree of accuracy in model prediction. If the model is left alone, especially with agents in the picture, if it is left alone to do whatever it wants, then that is going to be a risk for the company. So it's very important to have both AI and human in the loop, and any day it is much more important than having just the AI alone. So yeah, closing with that statement, I hope you were able to understand a couple of governance principles through this presentation. And if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat, and make sure to connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you want to learn more about my data engineering workshop, I can share you more information out there. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you so much for joining me today. It was very nice talking to you all.
Hey. Thank you very much, Sanjana, for that AI governance in the data pipelines. And I also agree, human in the loop is very important. But if we have any questions in the audience here. Okay.
All right, so I do have a question around data and the LLM. So for example, you have users who are building products on LLMs that they do not own. So for example, you have someone who works for a SaaS organization and you're trying to build maybe an agentic AI, but you're building it on an LLM that you don't own. It's a third-party procured LLM. So how does data security and how do you incorporate, so as a security analyst now, how do you incorporate or ensure that these people are using, or how do you assess the data that they are using for these LLMs? Because they don't own the models, they don't train them, they just procure these LLMs. So how do you bridge that gap, knowing what to assess for and what is left for the LLM owners to assess?
Right, that's a very good question. Thank you so much for that. To answer it, so first thing is when we are using models for any sort of analysis or training or whatever, it's very important to have that data privacy contract set in place. So when we are agreeing, for example, your company is agreeing with like OpenAI to use a couple of their models, then it's very important to internally come to an agreement saying, hey, this is the level. Are you sure that your model is not going to train on our data when we are asking it certain questions? And are you sure that this kind of enforcement will be set in place from your end? So having this initial agreement with the team is very important. So now once you have that level of agreement and once you have that set in place, you move on to the next step of making sure that the model doesn't have control or access to all of your internal data systems, by making sure that whenever something is trying to access your internal data, there is some level of a notification or some level of a ping or a nudge that is given to your team, just to make sure that these models do not have like random access to like random data types, right? So that is one another way in which you can make sure that governance, or basically the security aspect of it, is set in place. But outside of that, there are also some different principles that you can incorporate when you're thinking about training your models. So there is obviously RAG. RAG allows you to ensure that it just makes sure that all your company data is sitting in like an external system, and this model just has access to that level of information and nothing more. And then there's also like fine tuning. If you want to have your own LLM which is trained on your on top of your own data, that you will have complete control over. So this is also one another way in which you can enforce privacy and security. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. We have another question here.
Yeah. I have a question about that application cancelled. The application,
Okay.
the pre-application, the loan application
Yeah.
cancelled.
Yeah.
And then reprocess and pass the loan. But that cancel application went to one database where the cancel applications are there. Whenever she
Right.
apply again, loan apply again, their application come again. And they say she denied loan in that position, that time.
Exactly. That happens when data governance is not set in place. And I think that is just a big flag of, how commonly these kind of things are happening today. Where, just because one time you make, so for example, recently I was applying to this another network, a creator network, and it just so happened that I had like two different accounts on my name. So by mistake, I had created one account with them very long ago. I don't remember that. And I had another application from another email account. And it just so happened that they flagged my application saying, hey, it looks like you're impersonating another actual creator, and we're going to reject your application on the basis of impersonation. And this is obviously just another example of when you don't have like these governance or this lineage tracking set in place, you wouldn't know if it is the same person, if it's another person, if there is data being duplicated or whatever. But I'm so sorry to cut you off. What was your question?
My question was that if there is the AI, they should have to correct that cancel application doesn't go for the rejected column.
Right.
Should not be stay in the rejected column, because it's AI and they have to correct that application. Because for future, it will not come back again and haunt her.
Right.
So there is any
Absolutely.
system for that or no? That means the rejected application goes in other column and pass application goes in other column and whole her life, and that will come again and again.
Yeah, so if the company doesn't have governance principles set in place, there is a high chance that whatever you said happens. But if they already have governance principles set in place, the customer support team can clearly track that it was rejected due to certain reason, and this is why it is landing in this pool, and they'll be able to correct it for her when if she raises a request with them. But you're right. It shouldn't happen even in the first step. In the first step itself, during the ingestion itself, it should be flagged saying, hey, you did not fill in this, and this is an important parameter for our model to make the decision. So you have to fill this. This is a mandatory field, and then it goes on to like the next step.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Anyone else have a question? Another question, Sanjana.
Right.
Thanks for your presentation, but I have one question. The use case scenario that you just mentioned about data quality, that should have been evident during the training phase of the model, right? Why should we wait until the governance phase?
Right. So it just so happens that these models have already been, so in several settings, models are already trained on some training data, right? And there are several scenarios in which if there are if the scenarios that we are talking about have already been included in the training phase, obviously the model will be able to make that distinction. But as humans, we have to understand that, it is also our responsibility to make sure that, these models are making an informed decision, and we can't just like blindly trust them. That is why the human in the loop factor comes in place. So it's not just a trainer. I mean, like sometimes if I mean, like obviously the company should have all of these governance principles set in place, so that even after the model training is complete and even in the testing phase, this sample data is considered for the next training cycle.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have any other questions?
I'm just curious, do you have examples of AI governance in clinical data, such as genomic data?
No, I don't think I've seen. Sorry, I don't come from that background, but yeah, I'm sure the pillars would apply to like any industry, but yeah, I don't have any specific examples. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all the questions that we have. Sanjana, thank you very much for coming in and signing in from London. And we appreciate your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So thank you for the speakers, Sonali and Sanjana. I think this was real good information that you're sharing with the community. So thank you for that. We have one last poll, which says what you like best of the session, just for something that we can better for the next upcoming meetings. So we have every month these kind of meetings. So this is one last poll. But otherwise, you can stay on for networking, but this is the last in our agenda. Everybody's done with the QR code, then we'll pull up the results. And this slide, this deck will be shared with all of you. So under the names, under the coordinators, we have LinkedIn links. So if anybody wants to connect or ask questions, any additional questions, feel free to reach to any of us. I like somebody put the word women, so it's aligned with that. theme today. So yes, you had a question?
We have a women only seminar here, right? Our women oriented seminar for the data. That shows the status that we are not equal. That is what I'm saying. And then why that is the case, even if you ask, like, let's say cloud code, right, comes a tool as a tool. Now, how many men are going to jump on using that tool versus how many women are going to use the tool, right? Versus just talking to ChatGPT. So how many people are going to advance degree or advance deeper dive into AI from the woman perspective, right? So that is need to be seen. And I see like more men are going to jump on the experimental side, rather than just usage side. And why it is so? Do you see there's a lack of like more initiative within the women, to go and jump into deeper into this field? That is one thing. And the second question is that are women bringing more to what men can bring from the data perspective in terms of looking at the data? Yeah. Did you get the question?
Can you just summarize that?
Sure. Yeah. So the first thing is our women are less inclined to go into the data field or the AI field, from the much deeper diving perspective, like what can be out there versus just doing the mundane jobs in the computer engineering or whatever.
I don't think it's a gender aspect on that. I think it's a personality, right? I think there are some people who really want to deep dive and do research. And I think it's a human personality versus a gender. That's my take on it. I don't know if anybody else has any other inputs to that, but.
I feel it depends on priorities as well. Women have different priorities versus men. And I wouldn't say responsibility. I know men have a different kind of responsibility versus women. And there's a tendency that the emotional factor within women is something that will kind of restrict them to immediately jump into something new versus men. And yeah, definitely priorities is what is making the difference right now.
Thank you. My second question was that there are a lot of product designed by the men, right? And women are trying to improve on that. I mean, this when seatbelt, in the car were invented, and then when women jump into gun, they say the chase should be different and you should adjust for the babies, the seatbelt. So from the data perspective, are we seeing any of those trends that you may have identified or any been focused into that women are having new focus on the data and with the traditional men experiences starting in the computing for a long time?
Yeah, I'm not a data scientist, but one thing, so I saw a study online where we were talking about it. There's a study where women will go to college for like STEM related degrees, but a lot of times like women will get into the career and they don't get to like climb up to that senior level, as we mentioned earlier in the presentation. So I think like women want to be involved in these conversations, but right now, we're all like working to be able to have a seat and to be a part of those conversations. So right now, the trends, there might be a lacking in the trends because there's not a lot of women in senior leadership, as like we saw in the data. And that's what's holding us back from making those decisions. But we have a
I believe the necessity for having a presentation specifically for women is because as we began with it, the only woman in this team, the only woman is very exhausting to listen to. We're all trying to find more of our cult. and trying to ensure that we are heard. Because honestly, as I said, I am part of a 30 members team with 30 male developers only. And their perspective on solving is just, are we advanced on the technology? They're not thinking about the ethical sections of it or how it's affecting things or is it necessary. That question doesn't come into the picture until there is another voice that says, you know what, we don't need this here. This is too much. You don't need automated Excel for you to analysis that you just need a median here. That is insane. And you always need a female for some reason to say that. And it is very annoying. And that is why I think these kind of seminars are very important because we are lost in that world. And every time one of us speaks, there are at least 20 others trying to say, okay, there is a person in power who's a male who will have to take the decision, whom you'll always have to answer to. And that is very annoying to be able to cater to it. And I think that is why this is important. It's not because they are looking for an emotional aspect in it. It's more of we want to make a stand. And I don't think this is an AI specific problem. And I think it's an overall specific problem. So we're just trying to take a stand and it's always a fight.
If I can just add to it, I think the entire tone of this sounds very accusatory, like it's on women to find that space and why are they doing this? And it just seems very accusatory. I don't think, I think the tone needs to change, right? There is systematically something wrong with it that we need to work towards improving. You're saying that women are probably not spending as much time in exploring the new tools. Maybe they don't have the bandwidth, right? You're doing your work and then you have so many other responsibilities which maybe men don't have. So maybe we think about some of those systematic factors rather than accusing women or putting them in that defensive position to say, you know, why do you need another forum?
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, I'm not sure if someone's talking, but I'd like to add something on that, and I think I agree. I think one another aspect is that whenever people judge something that women are generally doing, it's always thinking that hey, their male counterparts are doing it better than them, or would perform better than them in that particular aspect, and that is definitely I've seen that happen in more settings than more projects or in even across teams where opinions are very limited to like what the male counterparts, the male developers in the team think about their work rather than just like allowing them that opportunity to just step up and having placing trust in their decisions. I think that is also another trend that I've noticed.
If there are no other questions, and if you can hear me, thank you all. Around 50 of you in the room and about 10, 11 of us online here. It's of course, I'm no sociologist, but one of the things that if you went through today's session was a human in the loop aspect. And there's something that, we think of differently. So if your AI model gave you an example, you want to wear a plaid shirt, a check shirt and a check pants, maybe not the best option. Women in there would probably help correct that. But there are AI models which may put that out because the data supports that. So, it's just a point of view, it's an opinion. And going forward, I think that human in the loop is probably going to be very relevant as AI develops. So definitely having more opinions, and it comes from experience, like that seatbelt example. So it comes from experiences. Experiences are different across genders, definitely. So those examples, those improvements, those things will happen. But I'm enjoying that we are having so much of conversation and thought in here. I think we're a little over time today, but I'll let you guys continue networking and share with each other, build this community. Thank you so much for leveraging this platform and being here today.